Hello and welcome back to ClearCast, the real estate fintech podcast. This is lucky episode 13, Kenon.
Ooh, scary. It's
It
going to be
is
great
scary.
though. It's going to be great. Nothing, what wrong thing could possibly happen?
A lot could go wrong for us, I'm pretty sure. I am Jeff Allen, joined as always by my friend and colleague Kenon Chen. Kenon, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Do you
Yeah.
want to ask me how I'm doing, or is this really
Oh,
just me asking about you?
huh. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, good.
So we've got a great episode. Later on, we're going to be chatting with Jen Yosef of Mighty, and that's going to be pretty cool. And of course, we do have a real estate joke of the pad. But before we get into all that, we are going to talk about some news stories. And Kenon, there is no bigger news story, perhaps, in the mortgage industry right now than the recent uptick in mortgage rates. Did you notice that?
Well, there is a bigger news story, but we're not going to talk about that right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Those of you who
Um,
are on the inside know what I'm talking about. We're going to move on to a different story.
So rates have gone up pretty significantly, kind of a hockey stick growth in mortgage rates, and that's got some people, wondering if there's going to be a significant slowdown. But a lot of people seem confident, including this article we read here in National Mortgage News, that there is still a strong home sales season lying ahead in 2021. What's the story here, Kenon?
Yeah, well, I think rates took a sharp turn up, and that reduced loan applications for refis by like 50%. And so there was certainly some concern on, is this really going to slow down what we can expect for originations? But this article really, focuses on the fact that from a purchase market standpoint, the demand for home sales is going to continue. So there seems to be a number of factors that are, overcoming the increase in rates. Number one, rates are still low, historically speaking. So while it feels like a major, increase over what we've been seeing down in the, sub 3%, that it's still low, and still provides, even actually I'll say on the refi side, still provides, a real option for people that are taking cash out, to pay off other high percentage debt. But from a purchase standpoint, I think the demand for more space, there's more, household, um, uh, increases, going on. Um, we're seeing continued um, entering in the market in terms of first-time home buyers from the millennial generation. And then, there's a loosening of credit standards that, that the article points out, as well, which still gives people some more buying power, and availability of financing. So, you know, we're heading into the spring, Jeff. So that's when, things typically really heat up.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to kind of watch this, leading up into the summer and see if the predictions are true.
Yeah, and it is funny, you're right, that we freak out about, well, freak out's not the right word, but react strongly to rates having gone up to like 3.5% when as recently as 5 years ago, that was like record breaking low, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
even to mention what things were like back in the 80s. So yeah, you're right. Let's keep it in context.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And speaking of buying homes, uh,
Excellent
there seems
segue,
to
Kenon.
be, yeah, there seems to be a no, this trend of remote work doesn't seem to be going away.
Hmm.
And and there's cities competing for that remote work. Uh, Tell us about this kind of interesting um, set of offers, if you will.
Well, let me tell you. Um, there is a CNBC article that caught our attention with this headline. Some cities are paying people up to $16,000 to move there, and this online directory will help you find them. Kenon and I, as people who enjoy receiving $16,000,
I'll take it. I'll take it. Sign me
clicked
up.
on the article, and it was brought to our attention that there is this company called MakeMyMove.com. And MakeMyMove.com is an online directory that launched just recently in December 2020. And it's a consolidated resource that shows all the different city-based incentives to design people to relocate to those cities. And what's incredible is if you go to MakeMyMove.com, you will see that there is a lot of cities offering this. So just a couple examples on the site here. The Southwest Michigan region is offering $16,000, and it lists perfect for Chicagoans looking to leave the Windy City. Closer to my home, Harmony, Minnesota is offering $12,000 to encourage people to move there. And
Harmony, it's a nice name. I like Harmony.
You know what's funny is so growing up in Minnesota, my dad always told a joke whenever we would drive through Harmony on our way to Iowa, and his joke was, how many beers will I have tonight? So that it's actually pretty relevant. And so
how many beers does $12,000 buy you?
Well, are we talking like high-end IPA or like old Milwaukee Light? So every city has its own listing page, the same way that a home has a listing page online when you're trying to sell a home. And the Harmony site says, remote workers are invited to Harmony, Minnesota. We are offering $12,000 in cash rebates. Nearby, the countryside is dotted with wineries and distilleries. So there you go. How many beers do you want?
Huh? Are they overselling it, or is that actually a land of wineries and
they are overselling it. It's essentially like a small farm town.
Got it. Well, I heard that some of them actually are giving you money towards a house, like a specific sort of down payment deal.
Exactly. Yep. Huh. Exactly. That's what a lot of these look like. And the Harmony, Minnesota package, for example, is specifically for home construction. So it's for you to build a new home in Harmony.
Oh, interesting. Well, that's one way to get housing starts going.
There you go.
One house at a time.
One house at a time. One beer at a time.
Super interesting.
Yeah. So speaking of beers, Kenon, are you ready for the real estate joke of the pod?
I am completely and unbelievably ready.
That is fantastic. So there's this hurricane, right? Are you with me so far?
Is this related to beer, or is
no? There's actually no tie-in to beer. I just couldn't think of a good segue.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Okay. There's this hurricane, and it is massive, and it is barreling down the Florida coast, and it just decimates the place. I mean, houses are torn apart. There's flooding. The streets are strewn with rubble. It's just terrible. And as anyone in the mortgage industry knows, this has now created a problem for any borrowers who had an currently active loan they were trying to work through that hasn't closed yet, right? So now all those houses have to be inspected to make sure that they haven't been destroyed or damaged or messed up, or in some way they've been damaged that will make the collateral less valuable and could impact the loan. For those who don't know, these are known commonly as disaster inspections. Kenon, did you know that?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
You've heard of it because at Clear Capital, we've been doing tens and tens of thousands of them recently for the state of Texas.
That's what it is. Now it's all coming back.
Yes. So a disaster inspection, right? We got to make sure the house is there. So there's this property inspector who's now tasked to go check out the hurricane site in Florida. Okay. And the lender is like, go to this area. I got like 20 properties for you to check out. Here's the addresses with the assignment sheets. Let's see what's going on with these properties. And so he's out doing his inspections. He's checking out the houses. Things are going pretty good. And then he pulls up the info sheet for the assignment for his next house that he's supposed to check out. And the sheet says, this property is dual purpose. It's a residential property, but it also serves a commercial purpose as a cheese shop. That's kind of weird. Like,
that is kind of weird.
He's like, what? Like, the house also has a cheese shop in it? Like, I've never heard of that. Like, is that legal?
What sort of cheese do they sell?
So he drives onto the street where the property is supposed to be, and the entire block has been destroyed. Like, every single house is leveled, so there's no address numbers listed anywhere, right? So how's he supposed to be able to find this place? But somehow the inspector figures out immediately exactly which destroyed house is the cheese shop. Any idea why?
No. No idea. Please tell me.
Well, it was pretty obvious based on the large amount of debris. Do you get it?
It should not be that funny. It really shouldn't.
Did you know it was going to be a debris-based joke because you were asking what kind of cheese it was?
No, I didn't. I was actually really interested.
Okay, you just actually wanted to know what the cheese it was. So it's like there was debris, like the rubble, and then it was also like the brie.
The brie, which is a type of cheese.
It is. It is a type of cheese.
I really didn't want to laugh, and I couldn't help it.
Well, then I know I've done my job. Thank you. All right, we are joined today by Jen Yosef. Jen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kenon. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys here today.
Awesome. So Jen is the CEO of a really cool company called Mighty. And Mighty provides AI-driven repair cost estimates supporting the real estate industry. As CEO of Mighty, Jen has led the company in a successful seed funding round and built partnerships with some of the largest real estate brokerages in the country. She's also passionate about minority female founders and the unique challenges that they face in tech. Jen, we are super excited to have you here today. So why don't you start by just giving us an introduction into Mighty, what Mighty does and what you guys are passionate about solving.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. So Mighty is a real estate analytics company. And what we are doing is we provide a data-driven pricing on how much home repairs are really going to cost you. Through our technology, we really are able to do this and provide this information within hours versus if you look at the typical way of getting this information, we're talking about wasting days, right? And you're waiting days just to get this kind of information. So now not only are we reducing the time, but we're also optimizing the entire transaction through our product.
Nice. And is that typically, I mean, I would imagine today it's very paper-based probably and trying to wrangle a number of different participants. How do you simplify that? How do you make it easier to find everything in one spot, I guess?
So yes, it is. It was a very, very paper-driven method. And I think 2020 changed a little bit of that, where it changed how data is being shared. It changed how people want to receive information. And that's how we were able to really identify that, look, we were already working on Mighty. This was a product that was being used by agents. But the biggest thing was, how do we, like you asked, Kenon, how do you simplify this product? And our biggest thing was, look, we want to be able to give agents access, who realtors are our primary consumers right now, and then really they are the ones that supply the information to the buyers and sellers, but give them a platform that's very simple so that they are able to access that as quick as possible and send it over to us. And we know that right now, if we look at the real estate system in general, it's so siloed, right? And while we are an essential piece, we're still a little bit siloed. So our platform at least makes it where you can, within 5 minutes, you can submit the information that you need to us.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned that realtors find this valuable. Why is accurate repair estimation data helpful for realtors? What does that help them unlock with their customers?
Absolutely. So realtors need powerful data on homes. And the reason they really need this is because this is what helps them guide their buyers and sellers to make the best and most knowledgeable decisions on the home, right? Now, once you give this kind of information to understand what these repairs are going to cost and give this information to your buyers, you really are making that entire cycle of the transaction much more transparent, but you're also taking out things like guesstimation, right? How many times have agents had to just guesstimate and make up, not necessarily even make up might be the wrong term, but just have this number in their head thinking what
It's
things are gonna
makeup. It's
cost.
makeup. You're fine.
And even the buyers and sellers, right? The buyers can say, hey, I want a $10,000 credit. And the seller's like, where the hell did this number come from? So that's what we are trying to do, is let's make this a logical process that it is, and backed by data. So there in itself is so much value for that real estate agent to have this information so that they can now go to the buyer and seller and say, look, we're not only reducing risk and liability, we're providing you something that is data driven and it's backed by a neutral third party.
Yeah, my most recent home purchase experience, one of the homes we had looked at that we didn't get but had put an offer on had a retaining wall issue, and it was kind of right on that point where you're like, maybe in the next year or so this is going to have to be replaced, but it was on a hillside, so it's like super hard to estimate. And we had at least a really good realtor that had a good contractor background who was able to do a good job with that estimation. But if not, I mean, if he didn't have that contractor background, it would have been very difficult to make an offer and discount, right, based on what we thought was going on there. So that seems super helpful. Your background, though, you haven't always been in real estate. How did you end up at Mighty, and maybe tell us a little bit about your journey?
Absolutely. So prior to joining Mighty, I think my experience in the real estate world was very similar to what most people's is. I bought and sold a few properties, and my knowledge and experience was very limited in that. But one of my really good mentors and a close friend of mine is the one who introduced me to Mighty when it was in the very, very early stages. It was coming out of a prominent accelerator program, and he said, I think this is a company you should look at. As I was transitioning out of the energy sector and I wanted to get more into the tech space. So as I looked at it, I was instantly attracted to the whole concept that the company was working on. You've got an antiquated space of real estate. You're trying to solve a problem for not just realtors, but really the buyer and the seller. And so all those pieces were very attractive to me. So as I started digging in more into the company, the company had started off on the basis that, look, why don't we help out with home improvement projects? But as I came into the company, I saw that this was not the most cost efficient way of doing things. Scaling would be very difficult. And we've seen, Home Advisor, Angie's List, they've really taken things into more of a lead gen model. And my biggest goal was, look, let's create a product that is extremely valuable to the end consumer. And it's helping them, it's making, providing that convenience, providing that efficiency. So this was a unique opportunity for me to dive into this space that I didn't know much about and to really embed myself with the users, with the real estate agents. So believe it or not, I spent a good year and a half basically just going to every single real estate agent meeting and events just because I wanted to get to know my customer inside out. And I think this really goes back to my philosophy of when you're founding a company and when you are running a company as a CEO in the early days, this is very, very critical because then you will understand your consumer on a completely different level.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's something that I think uh, many founders try to skip. It's a step that's really important, but people try to skip it. Is you really need to understand your users at like the core cellular daily level. It sounds like you really put that effort in to make that a reality, which is great. So, obviously we're talking about, in those last, bits of insight there, you're talking about kind of where you started, which is like the germ of the idea and really digging in and understanding it with customers. And now you guys have scaled out. What were some of the biggest challenges to that scaling process of getting Mighty across the country and where you guys are today?
So I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced when we were trying to scale was identifying the right partners and identifying the right, because we've always been more of a B2B to C model, identifying who would be the right businesses that would help us integrate Mighty into their systems and then really be able to expand it and open it for the real estate agents. So we spent probably a good 2 years working so organically, and then 2020 was a great year for us in the sense that we were able to expand nationwide. We were able to find the right partner that had the resources nationwide so that we were able to then move into the space of going into different markets.
Awesome. Yeah, is it a shift of mindset, I think, for your customers to adopt, the way that your solution works?
It really is. And I think that's a great question that you asked there, because with real estate agents, we have to, again, putting ourselves in their shoes, right? When it comes to technology, they've it's nothing new. It's not that our real estate agents don't have technology. It's just that they either end up having too much or it's fragmented. And
Mhm.
when that's the case, then they really have to make the decision and ask themselves, okay, where is my time best spent? Is this going to provide the value? They're already running around trying to close these deals and do as much as possible. And when you have a more like a marketing strategy that you're tapping into the top producers into each market, then from there you can have the other agents that would easily be able to adopt this. So that's one of the parts of scaling nationwide too, is when you have the right partner, you can tap into the right top producers, and from there they'll be able to open the pipeline and the doors for me. But now, as Mighty's gone into 2021, we have certainly expanded into our business partners and started off with very much the brokerages, but then looking at other partners as well.
Yeah, cool. Um, so I love this part of your bio, about you being passionate about minority female founders and company leaders. You know, uh, there's been a lot of accelerated conversation going on in both the real estate and the mortgage industry about diversity and inclusion, and usually that's targeted more around that conversation is usually more around, you know um, employees at large, right? Across the whole group of communities, whether it be, within lenders, within real estate brokers as a whole, or realtors as a whole. But this specific focus on leaders, on founders, talk to us a little bit about, how you see yourself, in that conversation, and whether you think we're headed the right direction, or what are some steps that could be taken if we're not headed in the right direction there.
No, I think this is certainly a topic I'm very passionate about, and something that I feel that every single one of us needs to put in work and effort, right, in order for it to progress. So nobody can really take a back seat and say that, oh, it's nice to hear those or have that as part of my company, or even when you're part of a larger corporation and organization, just be like, there are other people that are doing the work. So each one of us has to play a critical role. And for myself, I've always been a fan of the fact that, look, along my journey, there were several women, but there were a ton of men as well that helped me get to where I am today. And now my job and my role really is to pay it forward. So whether it's in a small capacity or in a large capacity, however I can help, right? And it goes beyond just being like, hey, you know, telling them things like, hey, you can do this, right? It's more about offering that practical support and guidance, or even connecting people to one another, right? That can really open the door. So for myself, that's personally how I really play a part. I'm very actively involved in mentoring, whether it's young women or being part of organizations that have other women leaders, so that I can be that voice. I can share my experiences and help others in that aspect. But when you say what are some of the things that we can be certainly doing, I would say have men as allies. And I did an interview a few months ago with this project called Fierce Women Project based in Pittsburgh, where they really want women leaders to talk about their experiences, but they're incorporating men. And that's where the first time I had really heard of that term being used. In the past, I'd heard about, having men as sponsors, as mentors. But when you have men as allies, it really, really helps, right? Because they obviously have a great set of knowledge and experiences that they can help. And I look at it where men and women are working together to be able to help solve this problem. And we're not separating the two. So we really have to be collaborating, and that's where I see a large opportunity. And like I said, I have, some of my biggest sponsors and mentors are men, and they've been just amazing in terms of opening doors for me and making sure I have the right opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. And as a man myself, this question is very relevant for me. What do you think are some of the most impactful ways that a man can be an ally to female minority founders and entrepreneurs?
I would say really being a sponsor for them, right? So there's one thing about opening up, saying, hey, absolutely happy to chat for like 15 minutes and give them advice here and there, but really that practical next step, right? So what I've noticed is men that have been great allies and have really helped me out have said, all right, here's where you're stuck, and here's what I can do to help you get a little unstuck. Whether it's
Mhm.
providing a solution, whether it's saying, why don't you check this avenue out? Or why don't I provide this introduction? And this would really help you out. So I would say, really, that practical aspect, because we can find a lot of mentoring and guidance by just reading too, right? We can read a uh, great books that are written by great leaders, but when you can identify women leaders and women that have potential and just say, hey, I know you're stuck in this part, let me help you out, that plays. And that could sometimes it's, you might not even see your mentee or that person for another 6 months, but that one little conversation and that one little door that you open could be very, very impactful.
Yeah. No, that's great advice, and uh, I've seen that work as well. Just practical networking and but you have to have a diverse network in order to connect a diverse network. Does that make sense? So if you just surround yourself with people that look like you, or people that are exactly like you, you're not really going to be able to open up those opportunities for others. So by creating a diverse network, you end up being able uh, to connect people to diverse opportunities.
Absolutely.
So I've found that, but awesome. So obviously the past year you mentioned, earlier, COVID has changed a lot of things. Has that impacted your business? And where do you think this year is going? Based on what happened last year.
The past year for a lot of businesses was critical. For us, it was consumer behavior changed. And because of that, our product, which already had good value, became extremely valuable. The fact that people wanted data-driven answers, they wanted efficiency, they wanted convenience, and we were supplying all that. That really, really helped us. Now, obviously, we had our struggles on the end more of when it comes to we were in the middle of fundraising when COVID hit, so all those plans had to kind of take a back seat, and we had to make sure that we really buttoned things up in terms of because we were really in that expansion mode last year, so we had to kind of just take a little step back, get a little bit more lean in that aspect. So we certainly had those kind of struggles, but in terms of product, we saw some really nice adoption rates. I mean, we were able to expand about 400% in our user growth just last year alone, which was really tremendous for us. In terms of where I see the 2021 going, I think in the prop tech space, I definitely have been following, obviously, the venture capital world closely, and I think a lot of capital is going to be deployed in the prop tech space. People have been observing this space for a while now, and with everything that happened in 2020, venture capitalists and investors are certainly feeling a lot more confident in what the future of real estate is looking like. And I think the other critical aspect is how technology is going to be used, right? So in a lot of industries, obviously the use of technology has kind of grown at a little bit of faster pace, whereas in the real estate, we saw last year, all of a sudden it went from like 0 to 100, right? Where there were people that had said, hey, I'm never going to use any of these products. And the day the shutdown happened, the next day, they did not have a choice. They had to use those. So people are especially when it comes to consumers and the buyers and sellers or real estate investors, they're never going back to how it used to be. They want convenience, they want certainty, they want a certain standard when it comes to how they're going to receive the services. And I think it also makes the agent, right, in our scenario, what we really share with our real estate agent is think about how much more valuable it makes you, and you really become that key strategist where now the consumer is looking at you and they're like, we need this strategist who is surrounded by all these great technology tools, and we can't access these tools without this key individual. And that's where I really see that when it comes to the investment side, when it comes to technology side, we're really going to continue seeing a very nice growth pattern.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that answer. 2020 really, it was a crappy year. We can all agree. But there was a lot of really great progress that happened in real estate and mortgage from a tech perspective. And I agree, it does feel like it's going to sustain. So that's a good spot to end on a positive and optimistic note. Jen Yosef, CEO of Mighty, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kenon. It was great seeing you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate it.